My husband asked for a divorce the day our son was born, so I did the unthinkable. Jessica could hardly believe her eyes when Brandon walked into the hospital room holding those papers. She was still feeling the pain of childbirth, the baby sleeping peacefully in her arms, and there stood her husband of 5 years asking for a divorce. "Brandon, what is this?" she asked, trying to understand if she was having a nightmare. "These are the divorce papers, Jessica. I want you to sign them right now," he said, placing the documents on the bedside table. "But why? What happened? Our son was just born." Brandon looked away, clearly uncomfortable. "I found out some things about you, things that change everything between us." "What things? What are you talking about?" Before he could answer, the door opened and Mrs. Sharon, Jessica's mother-in-law, walked in with a smile that sent chills down the young mother's spine. "Hello, my dear daughter-in-law," the 60-year-old woman said in a sweet tone that didn't match the cruel glint in her eyes. "How's the baby?" "Mrs. Sharon, can you explain what's going on here?" Jessica tried to stay calm, but her voice trembled. "Of course, dear. My son finally learned the truth about you." "What truth?" Mrs. Sharon stepped closer to the bed, pulling a folder of documents from her bag. "The truth is, you're not who you say you are, Jessica. I hired a private investigator, and we found out you were adopted as a baby." Jessica's world crumbled in that moment. She had always suspected something was off about her origins, but her adoptive parents had never told her the full truth. "So what? That doesn't change anything between us." She looked at Brandon, pleading for understanding. "It does," Mrs. Sharon said. "My son can't be married to someone of unknown background. We don't know what family you come from, what kind of people your birth parents are." "Mom's right, Jessica," Brandon finally spoke. "Our family has a reputation to uphold. I can't have a child with someone who might have who knows what kind of blood." The words stabbed Jessica's heart like knives. She looked down at the baby in her arms, so small and innocent, and felt a strength she didn't know she had. "Fine," she said, surprising them both. "I'll sign the papers, but on one condition." "You're in no position to make demands," Mrs. Sharon snapped. "Yes, I am. The house we live in was my grandmother's inheritance. It stays with me." Brandon looked uneasy. "Jessica, we can talk about this later." "No, it's now or never. If you want the divorce, I keep the house. It's only fair since you're abandoning me with a newborn." Mrs. Sharon whispered something in her son's ear, and he reluctantly nodded. "Fine. Keep that old house." Jessica signed the papers with trembling hands, barely reading what she was signing. She just wanted the nightmare to end. After they left, she cried until she had no tears left. Nurse Deborah, a kind woman who had cared for her during labor, approached. "Sweetheart, what happened here?" I heard raised voices. "My husband just asked for a divorce. He said he doesn't want me or the baby anymore." Deborah shook her head, outraged. "What kind of man does that to a woman who just gave birth? Do you have somewhere to go?" "I have my grandmother's house. At least he couldn't take that from me." "Listen, dear, I've worked here for 30 years and I've seen a lot. Sometimes what feels like the end of the world is just the beginning of something better." Jessica couldn't imagine how things could get better, but she thanked her for the comforting words. 3 days later, she arrived home with baby Ethan. The house was on a quiet street in Portland, old but well kept. It had been built in the 1950s by Jessica's grandmother, Grandma Ruth, who raised her after her adoptive parents left town when she was 15. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The house looked exactly as Jessica remembered. Antique furniture, but of good quality, walls with floral wallpaper that Grandma Ruth loved, and that distinctive lavender scent that always filled the rooms. She placed Ethan in the crib she had assembled weeks earlier, when she was still married and happy. Now, everything felt different. That's when she decided to go up to the attic to fetch some baby clothes she knew were stored there. Grandma Ruth always said she kept everything because you never knew when you might need it. In the attic, among dusty boxes, Jessica found a locked metal box buried under piles of old clothes. It struck her as odd. She'd never seen that box before. She carried it downstairs and forced the lock until it opened. Inside were old documents, some yellowed with age. As she began reading, she couldn't believe her eyes. There were land deeds, company stocks, and even a will she never knew existed. Apparently, Grandma Ruth had owned much more than just that house. Among the papers, she found shares in a local company called Sweet Harvest, a candy factory that had grown significantly in recent years. The stocks were in Jessica's name, transferred by will after her grandmother's passing. She grabbed the phone and called Richard Watson, a family lawyer who had handled the paperwork when Grandma Ruth passed away. "Mr. Watson, it's Jessica. I found some strange documents at home and wanted to know if you could help me understand them." "Of course, Jessica. What kind of documents?" "Company stocks, land deeds. It seems my grandmother had far more assets than I ever imagined." There was silence on the other end of the line. "Jessica, you need to come to my office right away. There are things I need to tell you." The next morning, leaving Ethan with Deborah, the nurse who had offered to help in those first days, Jessica went to the lawyer's office. Richard Watson was a man around 55, with graying hair and glasses. He greeted her with a concerned expression. "Jessica, your grandmother made me promise I'd only tell you the truth after you turned 25 and faced serious hardship in life. I think now is the time." "What truth, Mr. Watson?" "Your grandmother wasn't just the simple woman everyone thought she was. She was a silent partner in several businesses in the area. Those stocks you found are worth a fortune today." Jessica sat down, her legs weak. "How much?" "By my calculations, about $2 million. $2 million? That's impossible." "Not only is it possible, but it's all documented. Your grandmother was very smart. She invested the money she earned from washing clothes and sewing for the wealthy families in town. Over time, she bought stocks and land. She always said she wanted to secure your future." Jessica could barely process the information. "But why did she never tell me?" "Because she understood human nature well. She knew if you found out, others would too. And she didn't want you to marry for money." At that moment, Jessica understood why Brandon had so easily agreed to leave the house to her. He and Sharon thought it was just an old, worthless house. "There's one more thing," Richard continued. "Your grandmother left you a letter. She told me to give it to you when this moment came." He pulled a yellowed envelope from his desk drawer and handed it to Jessica. With trembling hands, she opened the envelope and began reading the letter, written in the familiar handwriting of Grandma Ruth. "My dearest Jessica, if you're reading this letter, it means you've faced some serious hardship and discovered the documents I left hidden. I want you to know that everything I built in life was with you in mind. You've always been special, ever since the day you came into my life at 15. Your adoptive parents, Michael and Susan, were good people, but they never truly appreciated you as they should have. When they decided to move away, you stayed with me, and I promised to take care of you forever. The money I left is to ensure you never go without and can raise your children with dignity. But beware of selfish people. True love doesn't care about what's in your bank account. Use this inheritance wisely. Be happy, my dear granddaughter. With all my love, Grandma Ruth." Jessica cried as she read each word. Grandma Ruth had always known how to protect her, even after passing. When she left the lawyer's office, Jessica felt like a different person. It wasn't just the money, it was the discovery that she had been loved and protected in ways she never imagined. Arriving home, she found Brandon at the door, wearing an expression very different from the one he had at the hospital. "Jessica, we need to talk." "We have nothing to talk about, Brandon. You chose your mother and gave up on your family." "I know I was an idiot. I was confused, scared by Mom's pressure, but I've thought it over, and I want to come back." "Come back?" Jessica couldn't hide the sarcasm in her voice. "Yes, we're a family." The divorce was rushed. "Interesting how you changed your mind so quickly." Brandon looked uncomfortable. "Jessica, I love you. I love our son. It was all a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding was you abandoning me at the hospital with a newborn because your mother found out I was adopted. But that doesn't matter anymore." "Doesn't matter? Of course it matters. It shows the kind of person you are." Brandon tried to step closer, but Jessica moved back. "Please, give me a chance to explain." "No, Brandon. You had your chance. Now Ethan and I will rebuild our lives on our own. You can't keep me from seeing my son." "Our son," Jessica corrected. "And yes, you can see him, but we'll never be a couple again." Brandon left upset, but Jessica knew he'd be back. She was sure Mrs. Sharon was behind his sudden change of heart. In the following days, she began organizing the inheritance documents and planning how to use the money. She didn't want unnecessary luxuries, just a secure future for Ethan. That's when she received an unexpected call. "Hello? Is this Jessica?" "Yes. Who's calling?" "My name is Margaret Thompson. I own Sweet Harvest. I heard you're the new shareholder." Jessica was surprised. She hadn't expected the news to spread so fast. "That's right. I inherited my grandmother's shares." "I'd love to meet you in person. Can we arrange a meeting?" "Of course. When would you prefer?" "How about tomorrow afternoon at my office?" The next afternoon, Jessica left Ethan with Deborah once again and went to meet Margaret Thompson. The company was in a modern building in downtown Portland. Margaret was an elegant woman in her 50s with a warm smile. She welcomed Jessica into her office, which overlooked the entire city. "Jessica, it's such a pleasure to meet you. Your grandmother was an extraordinary woman." "You knew my grandmother?" "I did. Grandma Ruth was one of my smartest business partners. She always believed in the company, even when we were just starting out." Margaret told her how she met Grandma Ruth 20 years ago, when the company was still small. "Your grandmother showed up here one day and said she wanted to invest with us. At the time, many people doubted that a candy company could succeed in a city that thrived on agriculture, but she believed in us. And it worked. It worked very well. Today we're the largest producer of handmade sweets in the region, and her shares represent 15% of the company." Jessica could hardly believe it. 15%. That means you have the right to participate in important company decisions and receive dividends every month. Dividends? The company's profits are divided among the partners. In your case, you'll receive about $20,000 a month. Jessica nearly fainted when she heard that. $20,000 a month? That's right. And if the company keeps growing as it has been, that amount could increase. When she left the company, Jessica's head was spinning. In just a few days, her life had completely changed. From an abandoned woman with no prospects, she had become a successful business owner. But her joy didn't last long. When she got home, she found Sharon at her door holding a bouquet of flowers. "Jessica, sweetheart, I came here to apologize." "Apologize for what, Mrs. Sharon?" "For everything that happened at the hospital. I was upset, worried about my son. You know how it is. A mother always wants to protect her children." Jessica opened the door but didn't invite her mother-in-law inside. "I understand, but that doesn't justify what you did to me." "You're right. It was all a terrible misunderstanding. But now we want to make peace. You're the mother of my grandson, and I want to be part of his life." "Part of his life?" "Yes. I can help with babysitting, clothes, diapers. I know it must be hard raising a child alone." Jessica noticed something had changed in Sharon's behavior. The woman who had humiliated her publicly just days before was now being overly polite. "I appreciate the offer, Mrs. Sharon, but we're doing fine." "I'm sure you are. By the way, I heard you inherited a few things from your grandmother. That's nice, isn't it?" There it was. The answer. Somehow Sharon had found out about the inheritance. "I did. Just some family keepsakes." "Keepsakes are important, after all. Well, I just wanted to say our family has open arms to welcome you and Ethan back." "Our family? But didn't you kick me out for being adopted?" Sharon looked uncomfortable. "Oh, sweetheart, that was just the heat of the moment. You know how it is, sometimes we say things without thinking." "I understand, but my answer stays the same. I'm not interested in coming back." "Think about it, Jessica. A child needs his father. Ethan will have his father, but Brandon and I are no longer together." Sharon left visibly upset, but Jessica knew she'd be back. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The following week, Jessica decided it was time to learn more about her origins. If Brandon and Sharon had prejudices about adoption, she wanted to know where she came from, so no one could ever use that against her again. She went to the registry office where she was recorded and requested a copy of her original birth certificate. The clerk, a kind older woman named Mrs. Florence, helped her with the paperwork. Jessica, are you sure you want to see these documents? Sometimes it's better to leave the past alone. I'm sure, Mrs. Florence. I need to know the truth. All right then, but I'll tell you one thing. Your birth mother still lives in town. Jessica's heart raced. She still lives here. Who is she? Jennifer Taylor. She owns a clothing store downtown. Jennifer Taylor. Jessica recognized the name. She was one of the most respected business owners in town, an elegant woman she'd often seen around but never spoken to. Mrs. Florence, why did she give me up for adoption? I don't know all the details, dear, but back then she was very young and unmarried. In the 90s, it was hard for a young woman to raise a child alone, especially for someone from a traditional family. Jessica left the courthouse with the address of Jennifer's store. She spent the rest of the day wondering whether she should go there or not. The next day, she gathered her courage and went to the shop. It was an elegant establishment, specializing in women's clothing. Jennifer was helping a customer when Jessica walked in. She was a beautiful woman around 45 years old, with well-kept brown hair, dressed elegantly, but not over the top. When she finished with the customer, she approached Jessica. Good afternoon. Can I help you with something? Good afternoon. Are you Jennifer Taylor? Yes, I am, and you are. Jessica took a deep breath. My name is Jessica Miller. I'm your daughter. Jennifer turned pale and leaned against the counter. Jessica, she whispered. Yes. I was born on March 15th, 1998. You gave me up for adoption when I was a baby. Jennifer closed her eyes for a moment as if gathering strength. How did you find me? I went to the courthouse. I needed to know about my origins. Come, let's talk in the office. Jennifer led Jessica to a small room in the back of the store. The two sat in silence for a few seconds. Why did you look for me now? Jennifer asked. Because some things happened in my life that made me question where I came from. What kind of things? Jessica briefly told her about the divorce and Sharon's comments about her background. I understand, Jennifer said, sadness in her eyes. I always feared this day might come. Why did you give me up for adoption? Jennifer sighed deeply. I was 18 when I got pregnant. I came from a very traditional family, and my father said if I didn't give the baby up for adoption, he'd kick me out of the house. What about my biological father? He was a boy my age. When he found out about the pregnancy, he disappeared from town. I never heard from him again. What was it like giving me away? Jennifer began to cry silently. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Every day for the last 25 years, I've thought about you. I wondered if you were okay, if you were happy, if your adoptive parents loved you. My adoptive parents were good people, but when I was 15, they moved to another state and left me with my adoptive grandmother. I'm so sorry. If I had known... You don't have to apologize. Grandma Ruth raised me with so much love. Ruth Miller, the seamstress. You knew her. Of course I knew her. She sewed clothes for my family for years. She was a wonderful woman. Jennifer seemed more at ease knowing Jessica had been raised by Grandma Ruth. Did she ever talk about you finding out you were adopted? She always said when the time was right, I'd know everything I needed to know. Grandma Ruth was wise. She knew how to keep secrets. The two talked for over an hour. Jennifer told her about her life, how she built her business alone, her failed marriage, and the fact she never had other children. Jessica, I know I have no right, but I'd like to meet my grandson. You have a grandson? I found out at the courthouse that you got married and had a baby recently. Ethan. He's 2 weeks old. Ethan, Jennifer repeated, smiling for the first time. That's a beautiful name. You can meet him, yes, but I want you to know my situation is complicated right now. Because of the divorce? Among other things, Jessica decided to tell her about Grandma Ruth's inheritance and how Brandon and Sharon changed their behavior after finding out about the money. People show their true colors when money's involved, Jennifer said. You need to be careful. I'm learning that. If you need anything, you can count on me. I know I wasn't there as a mother, but I'd like to try to be there as a grandmother. Jessica left the store with mixed feelings. Jennifer seemed like a good person, but it was hard to accept a mother who had been absent for 25 years. When she got home, Brandon was waiting at the door again. Jessica, where were you? I've been trying to talk to you for days. I was handling some business. What do you want, Brandon? I want to talk about our relationship. I can't accept that it's over like this. There's no relationship to discuss. You chose your mother over your family. But I was confused. My mum was pressuring me, saying you could have any kind of bloodline, that our child could be born with problems. Any kind of bloodline? Jessica felt her anger rising. Do you think adoption is a disease? No, I don't think that way. She was the one putting those ideas in my head. And you didn't have the strength to stand up for your own wife and child? Brandon lowered his head. I know I messed up, but I want to fix it. Some things can't be fixed, Brandon. Jessica, please, I love you. And now that I found out you inherited some assets from your grandmother, we can use that money to start fresh somewhere else, far from my mom. There it was, the truth. Brandon didn't want to come back out of love, but out of greed. So that's it? You want to get back together because of the money? No, of course not. The money doesn't matter. Good to know it doesn't matter, because you won't see a dime of it. Jessica, you're being unfair. We're married. What's yours is mine too. We were married. Now we're divorced. And the inheritance money is mine. Brandon visibly bristled. We'll see about that. My lawyer will review those divorce papers. Be my guest. You signed them yourself, agreeing I'd keep all assets from my family. Brandon stormed out, slamming the door, and Jessica knew the battle had only just begun. The following week, she got a call from Mr. Watson. Jessica, I need to see you urgently. There are some things about the inheritance I need to tell you. What kind of things? It's better we talk in person. At the lawyer's office, Jessica was met with a worried expression. Jessica, I had visitors this morning. Brandon and his mother came here asking about your inheritance. Can they do that? Legally, no. But they're hiring lawyers to challenge the divorce. On what grounds? They claim you hid information about your assets during the process, but I didn't even know about the inheritance then. I know that, and you know that, but they'll try to prove otherwise. Jessica's stomach twisted. What if they succeed? They'll try to take half of everything. That's why I called you here. I need to tell you something your grandmother asked me to keep secret until now. What is it? Mr. Watson opened the safe and pulled out another envelope. Your grandmother left a second letter. This one was only to be given to you if someone tried to dispute the inheritance. Jessica opened the envelope with trembling hands. My dearest Jessica, if you're reading this second letter, it means greedy people are trying to take what's rightfully yours. I want you to know every dollar I left you was earned through my own work long before you married. I have proof of that in the bank. But there's something you don't know. Brandon and his family are deep in debt. 3 years ago, when you two were dating, Sharon came to my house asking for a loan. She said her son owed dangerous people a lot of money, and that if I helped, she'd make sure Brandon married you quickly. I didn't give her a cent, but I kept a recording of that conversation. It's in the bank safe, along with other documents proving their motives were always financial. Use this information wisely. With love, Grandma Ruth. Jessica couldn't believe what she was reading. Mrs. Ruth recorded the conversation. She did. And not just that. She hired a private investigator to watch Brandon's family after that visit. And what did they find? That they owe money to half the town. Brandon's father's import business went bankrupt 5 years ago, but they managed to hide it from you. How did they hide it? They rented a fake office, hired temporary employees, staged everything to make you believe they were still successful business owners. Jessica felt deceived and humiliated. So my marriage was a lie from start to finish. From the documents your grandmother gathered, it seems so. The plan was to marry you, find out where Mrs. Ruth kept her money, and then figure out a way to take it all. But they didn't know she had that much money. They didn't know the exact amount, but they knew she had savings. Sharon even mentioned in the recording that your grandmother must have a good amount saved because she lived too simply for someone who only did laundry. Jessica left the lawyer's office with a mix of anger and relief. Anger for being deceived, but relief for uncovering the truth before it was too late. When she got home, she found a surprise. Jennifer was at the door holding a basket of fruit. "Hi, Jessica. I brought some things for you and the baby." "Hi, Jennifer. Please come in." Jennifer stepped inside and looked around fondly. What a beautiful house. Mrs. Ruth had excellent taste. "Thank you. Would you like to meet Ethan?" "Very much." Jessica went to get the baby, who was sleeping in his crib. Jennifer held her grandson for the first time with tears in her eyes. "He's beautiful, Jessica. He has your eyes. Everyone says that. Can I ask you something? Is his father helping at all?" Jessica told Jennifer about the issues with Brandon and the discovery of his family's debts. "Oh my, what selfish people," Jennifer remarked. "You need to protect yourself." "I'm trying. My lawyer is handling the paperwork. If you'd like, I can help. I know good people in town, trustworthy ones." "I appreciate that, Jennifer, but I'm still trying to process everything." "Of course. I don't want to pressure you. I just want you to know you can count on me." Jennifer stayed another hour, helping with Ethan and chatting about everyday things. Jessica began to feel more comfortable with her birth mother's presence. When Jennifer left, Jessica sat in the living room armchair, the same one Mrs. Ruth used to sit in to watch her soap operas. She missed her grandmother, but also felt grateful for all the protection she had left behind. The next day, she got an unexpected call from Margaret from Sweet Harvest. "Jessica, can I see you today? There's something urgent I need to tell you." "Of course, is it serious?" "It's better we talk in person." In Margaret's office, Jessica was met with a serious expression. "Jessica, I had a visitor this morning. Sharon Williams was here." "Brandon's mother? What did she want?" "She was pretending to be your legal representative. Said you'd authorized her to negotiate your shares in the company." "That's a lie. I never authorized that." "I figured as much. That's why I called you. She came with a lawyer and everything, claiming you were dealing with personal issues and preferred she handle your business affairs." "What kind of personal issues?" "She said you had postpartum depression and couldn't make financial decisions." Jessica was furious. That woman has no limits. First, she humiliates her granddaughter's origins, then tries to steal her money. "Don't worry. I didn't make any deals with her. But I think you should take legal action. I'll talk to my lawyer today." "Jessica, can I give you some advice? People like Mrs. Sharon don't give up easily. She'll try every possible way to get her hands on your money. But she has no legal right to my inheritance." "Not legally, no, but that won't stop her from stirring up trouble. You need to protect yourself." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Jessica left the company even more worried. Mrs. Sharon was clearly desperate and willing to do anything for the money. When she got home, she found Brandon at her door again, but this time he wasn't alone. There was a man in a suit beside him. "Jessica, this is Mr. Timothy, my lawyer. He needs to speak with you." "About what?" "About the inheritance and custody of Ethan." "Custody of Ethan?" Jessica felt her blood run cold. The lawyer stepped forward. "Miss Miller, my client is concerned about his son's well-being. We've heard you've been very unstable lately, missing the baby's doctor's appointments, leaving him with strangers." "That's a lie. Ethan is up to date on all his checkups, and he only stays with Deborah, who's a nurse." "We have witnesses who say otherwise," the lawyer said, handing her some papers. Jessica looked at the documents and saw they were statements from people she didn't even know, claiming she was neglecting the baby. "This is all lies. Who are these people? I don't even know them." "They're employees at the company where my client works. Respectable, upstanding individuals." "Brandon, how could you do this to me? You know I take good care of Ethan." Brandon looked away. "Jessica, I just want what's best for my son. And I think he'd be better off with me and my mother. who has more experience with children. Your mother has experience. She said herself at the hospital that she wanted nothing to do with Ethan because of my unknown background. She's changed her mind, admitted she was wrong. Changed her mind or found out about the inheritance, the lawyer cut in. Ms. Miller, we're willing to reach a friendly agreement. My client is open to shared custody and won't contest the inheritance, as long as you agree to a few conditions. What conditions? Splitting the inheritance 50-50 with my client, since you were married under shared assets. We're divorced, and he signed an agreement that I'd keep my family's assets. But at the time, he didn't know the full extent of those assets. Had he known, he never would have agreed. That's not my problem. Ms. Miller, I advise you to think carefully. If this goes to court, it could drag on for years. And in the meantime, your son will be caught in the middle. After the two left, Jessica immediately called Richard Watson. Mr. Watson, they're trying to take custody of Ethan. What do I do? Calm down, Jessica. Come to my office now and we'll sort this out. At the lawyer's office, Jessica recounted everything that had happened. They can't take custody from a mother without real proof of neglect, Richard explained. And from the papers you showed me, those witnesses are fake. What do you mean fake? I know these people. Two of them haven't lived in town for years. They forged the statements. What now? Now we fight back. I have the recordings your grandmother left, proving their motives have always been financial. I also have documents about his family's debts. Will that be enough? More than enough. We'll prove they're desperate opportunists trying to steal money from a single mother. Richard Watson prepared a petition with all the evidence, and the next day, he filed for a protective order against Brandon and Mrs. Sharon. 2 days later, Jessica received a visit from a social worker to check on Ethan's living conditions. Fortunately, the woman was competent and saw that the baby was well cared for. Mrs. Miller, I don't see any issues here. Your son is well fed, clean and up to date on all his vaccinations. Whoever reported you was clearly lying. Thank you. I was very worried. Do you have any idea who might have made the report? Jessica told her about the problems with Brandon and Sharon. I understand. Unfortunately, this kind of thing is common in custody disputes. I'll include in my report that the complaint was unfounded. A week later, Richard Watson called with good news. Jessica, we have a hearing scheduled for next week. The judge wants to hear both sides. And do you think we'll win? With the evidence we have, I'm sure of it. But be prepared. They'll try to unsettle you during the hearing. How so? They'll try to paint you as unstable, greedy, someone who hid information. That's their strategy. But I didn't hide anything. I didn't even know about the inheritance. I know, and we'll prove it. On the day of the hearing, Jessica arrived at the courthouse with Richard Watson. On the other side, Brandon was there with Sharon and their lawyer. The judge, a man around 50 named Judge Thompson, first listened to Brandon's lawyer. Your Honor, my client married the respondent, believing she was a simple woman from a humble background. Now we've discovered she concealed $1 million inheritance throughout their marriage. Doctor, is there any proof she knew about this inheritance? The judge asked. Well, she lived in the house that was part of the inheritance. That doesn't prove she knew its value. Next argument. Your Honor, we also question her ability to care for the child. She's been very erratic, leaving the baby with strangers. The judge looked through the papers. I see here a social worker's report stating the child is well cared for and the complaint was unfounded. Anything else? Brandon's lawyer seemed nervous. Yes, Your Honor. We believe there are irregularities in the inheritance documents. That's when Richard Watson stood up. Your Honor, may I present the evidence I've brought? The judge allowed it, and Richard Watson began showing all the documents Grandma Ruth had left. Here's a recording of a conversation where the plaintiff's mother asks my client's grandmother for a loan, making it clear their family's interest has always been financial. The judge listened to part of the recording, where Sharon's voice clearly said, Mrs. Ruth, you know I've always respected you. If you lend me this money, I guarantee my son will marry your granddaughter quickly. That way she'll be financially secure, and you can be sure your money stays in the family. Sharon's face turned red with shame. Your Honor, We also have proof of the plaintiff's family debts, showing their interest is purely financial. Richard Watson presented all the documents about the debts, the failed businesses, the fake company headquarters. And lastly, Your Honor, we have the false statements they submitted. 2 of these people haven't even lived in town for years. The judge reviewed all the documents silently for a few minutes. Then he looked at Brandon and Sharon. After reviewing all the evidence, it's clear there was bad faith on the part of the plaintiffs. Not only is there no legal basis to challenge the inheritance, but there's also evidence they attempted to forge documents and make false reports. He turned to Brandon. Mr. Brandon, the divorce has already been finalized and the asset division has been settled. Mrs. Jessica's inheritance predates the marriage and is not part of the couple's shared assets. As for child custody, I see no reason to take the child away from the mother. Then he turned to Richard Watson. Mr. Watson, forward these documents about the false testimonies to the district attorney's office. This could constitute the crime of falsifying records. Sharon tried to protest. Your Honor, my grandson needs his father. Ma'am, your grandson has a father. Nothing prevents the father from visiting the child regularly, but that doesn't give you the right to try to steal the mother's inheritance. The hearing ended with a complete victory for Jessica. Brandon and Sharon left the courthouse with their heads down, knowing they had lost for good. The following week, Jessica received an unexpected call from Jennifer. Jessica, can I come over today? I have a proposal for you. Of course. What kind of proposal? It's better we talk in person. Jennifer arrived in the afternoon, bringing some clothes for Ethan and a cake she had made. Jessica, I've been thinking a lot about our situation. I know I can't get back the 25 years I lost, but I'd like to try to build a relationship with you and my grandson. I'd like that too, Jennifer. So I want to make you a proposal. How about we become business partners? Partners? Yes, I have a good store, and you have capital to invest. We could expand the business together. Jessica was intrigued by the idea. What kind of expansion? I've always dreamed of opening a bigger store with clothes for all ages and tastes, but I never had enough capital. With your inheritance, we could do it. That's an interesting idea. But how would it work? You'd come in as an investing partner, and I'd handle operations. We'd split the profits 50-50. I need to think about it. Of course, you don't have to answer now. But consider it. It could be a way for us to start building a relationship while also ensuring your money grows. Jessica liked the idea, but decided to consult Richard Watson before making any decisions. Mr. Watson, what do you think of Jennifer's proposal? I'll need to look into it carefully, but in principle it seems good. Jennifer has a solid business and a good reputation in town, but we'll draft a detailed contract to protect your interests. Do you think I can trust her? Jessica, she's your birth mother. She may not have been there for you, but from what I see, she's an honest person trying to make amends. That's true. And it would be nice to have my own business, something I can build for Ethan's future. A week later, Jessica accepted Jennifer's proposal. They signed a partnership agreement and began planning the store's expansion. The new store would be 3 times larger than the original, with sections for women's, men's, and children's clothing, plus a space for accessories and shoes. Jessica, what would you like to name the store? Jennifer asked. How about Ruth's, in honor of my grandmother? Jennifer smiled. Perfect. Ruth's Boutique. Your grandmother would be proud. While the store was being renovated, Jessica focused on caring for Ethan and learning the business. Jennifer proved to be an excellent teacher, guiding her on suppliers, inventory, and customer service. It was during this time that Jessica got a surprising call from Deborah, the nurse who had become her friend. Jessica, can you come to the hospital? There's something I need to tell you. Is it about Ethan? Is he okay? Ethan's fine. It's about something else. Can you come now? At the hospital, Deborah took Jessica to a private room. Jessica, you remember Ethan was born here in the hospital's private maternity ward, right? Of course, why? There's something strange I noticed while reviewing his records. Some test results don't match what they should be. What do you mean? The blood type, for example. Ethan has type O negative, you have A positive, and Brandon has B positive. Genetically, that's impossible. Jessica felt the world spin. Are you saying Brandon might not be Ethan's father? I'm saying he definitely isn't. With these blood types, it's impossible for him to be the father. But how is this possible? I never cheated on Brandon. Jessica, did you undergo any fertility treatments before getting pregnant? I did. We'd been trying for 2 years and the doctor suggested some procedures. What kind of procedures? Artificial insemination, but it was with Brandon's sample. Deborah grew serious. Jessica, I think there was a mix-up at the lab. Unfortunately, that sometimes happens. Are you saying Ethan isn't Brandon's son? Exactly. And if there was a mix-up, the real father could be any of the other patients who underwent the same procedure around the same time. Jessica sat down, trying to process the information. How do I find out who the real father is? First, you need to go to the clinic where you had the treatment and demand answers. They're required to keep records of all procedures. And then? Then, if there really was a mistake, they'll have to give you the information about the actual donor. Jessica left the hospital with her head spinning. In just a few months, her life had completely changed several times, and now here was another unexpected revelation. She decided not to tell anyone until she was sure of what had happened. She went straight to the clinic where she'd had the treatment. The Miracle Fertility Center was in a modern building downtown. Jessica went straight to the reception desk. Good afternoon. I'd like to speak with Dr. Johnson, the physician who handled my case. Your name, please. Jessica Miller. I had treatment here last year. The receptionist checked the computer. Do you have an appointment? No, but it's urgent. It's about my son who was born 2 months ago. I'll see if the doctor can see you. After waiting 15 minutes, Jessica was called into Dr. Johnson's office, a man around 45 with graying hair and glasses. Jessica, it's good to see you. How's the baby? Doctor, I found out something about Ethan that has me worried. What is it? His blood type doesn't match mine or my husband's. It's genetically impossible for Brandon to be the father. Dr. Johnson visibly tensed. Jessica, this could have several explanations. Doctor, was there a mistake in the procedure? Was the sample used really my husband's? Dr. Johnson stood up and closed the office door. Jessica, I need to tell you something, but first I want you to know it was never my intention to harm anyone. What happened? There was indeed a mistake in the procedure. Your husband's sample wasn't viable that day, and the lab used another donor's sample without informing us. Which donor? Dr. Johnson seemed even more nervous. This is the complicated part. The sample was... It was mine. Jessica was stunned. Yours? What do you mean, yours? I've been an anonymous donor at the clinic's sperm bank for years. That day there was confusion in the lab, and they ended up using my sample instead of your husband's. Are you saying Ethan is your son? Biologically, yes. But I want you to know I only found out recently, when I started investigating similar cases where there were issues. Jessica couldn't believe what she was hearing. Other cases? This happened to other people? Unfortunately, yes. There were problems with the lab's system that caused several mix-ups. How many cases? At least 5 that we've uncovered so far. Jessica stood up, furious. Doctor, this is outrageous. You're playing with people's lives. Jessica, I know you're upset, and you have every right to be. We're willing to financially compensate all affected cases. Compensate? You think money fixes this? No, of course not. But it's the least we can do. I want to sue this clinic. Jessica, if you sue, this will become a public scandal. Think about Ethan. Do you want him to grow up knowing he was conceived because of a medical mistake? The question made Jessica stop and think. If this went public, Ethan would grow up knowing his conception was an accident. Doctor, I need time to think about all this. Of course. But Jessica, can I ask you for a favor? What favor? I'd like to meet Ethan. I know I have no rights as a father, but I'd at least like to see my biological son. I don't know, this is all so confusing. I understand. Think about it. If you ever decide to introduce me to him someday when he's older, I'll be available. Jessica left the clinic completely stunned. In just a few hours, she had discovered that Brandon wasn't Ethan's father. The real father was the doctor who had performed the treatment. She decided not to tell anyone yet. She needed to process everything first. When she got home, she looked at Ethan sleeping in his crib and felt a mix of emotions. That beautiful baby was her joy, no matter who his biological father was. The next day, Jennifer came over to help with the store preparations and noticed Jessica seemed off. "Jessica, are you okay? You seem worried." "I'm fine, Jennifer. Just some problems that came up." "Do you want to talk about it?" Jessica thought for a moment. Jennifer was her biological mother. Maybe she was the right person to confide in. "Jennifer, can I tell you something in confidence?" "Of course, sweetheart." Jessica told her everything about the blood type discovery and her conversation with Dr. Johnson. Jennifer was shocked. "Oh my goodness, what a complicated situation. I don't know what to do. If I sue the clinic, it'll become a scandal. But if I do nothing, they'll keep doing this to other people." "Jessica, can I give you some advice from someone who's lived a little?" "Of course." "First, think about Ethan. He's an innocent baby who isn't to blame for any of this. Second, think about what's best for both of you. Money doesn't fix everything, but it can secure a better future for him. You think I should take the settlement? I think you should negotiate, not just for compensation, but for a guarantee this won't happen to anyone else." "What do you mean?" "Demand that they change all their protocols, fire those responsible for the mistake, and implement better safety measures. That way you protect other families in the future." Jennifer's suggestion made sense to Jessica. She could use this situation to create positive change, not just get money. The next day, she returned to the clinic with a proposal. "Dr. Johnson, I spoke with my family about the situation. I'm willing to keep this out of the public eye, but I have some demands." "What demands?" "First, fair financial compensation. Second, you change all protocols to ensure this never happens again. Third, you give me information about other cases so those people can be compensated too." "Jessica, regarding compensation, we were thinking $100,000. "Doctor, that's far too little for what you've done. I'm talking $2 million. Dr. Johnson nearly choked. $2 million? That's a lot of money. You played with my life, my marriage, my family. $2 million is nothing compared to the damage you caused. "Jessica, I'll need to discuss this with the other clinic partners. You have 3 days to decide. If you refuse, I'll go public and sue for emotional damages." "And what about meeting Ethan?" "I still need to think about that. But regardless of my decision, it doesn't change our negotiation." Jessica left the clinic, determined to get justice, not just for herself, but for all the other families who had been through the same thing. 3 days later, Dr. Johnson called, agreeing to all of Jessica's demands. The clinic would pay $2 million, change all its protocols, and compensate the other affected families. With this extra money, Jessica felt more financially secure. She decided to invest part of it in the boutique with Jennifer and save the rest for Ethan's future. Ruth's boutique opened 2 months later with a lovely celebration that brought the whole community together. Jennifer and Jessica worked well together, and the business flourished quickly. Brandon tried to show up a few times to see Ethan, but always with ulterior motives. Jessica kept the visits supervised and only allowed them when he showed genuine interest in his son. Sharon never appeared again. Jessica later heard through town gossip that she had moved to another state, ashamed of the whole situation. As for Dr. Johnson, Jessica decided Ethan should learn the truth when he was older, but for now she would keep it a secret. The boutique grew so much that within 6 months, they needed to hire employees. Jennifer proved to be an excellent partner and a devoted grandmother to Ethan. "Jessica, I'm so proud of everything we've built together," Jennifer said one day as they closed up the shop. "Me too, Jennifer. Thank you for coming into my life at just the right time. Thank you for giving me a second chance to be a mother and grandmother." The two women hugged, knowing they had built not just a business, but a true family. Ethan grew up healthy and happy, surrounded by love and care. Jessica knew there would still be challenges ahead, but she felt ready to face them. One afternoon, while playing with Ethan in the backyard of their home, she looked around and saw everything she had achieved. The house she inherited from Grandma Ruth, the thriving boutique, her bond with Jennifer, the financial security to raise her son. It had all started with betrayal and abandonment, but had turned into growth and resilience. Ethan giggled in her arms, unaware of the whole story that had led to this moment of peace. Jessica smiled, knowing she had made the right choices. Grandma Ruth had left her more than just money. She had left wisdom, protection, and an example of how to face hardships with dignity. "Grandma, thank you for everything," Jessica whispered, looking up at the sky. The wind rustled the leaves of the backyard tree, like a tender response from the grandmother who had always watched over her. The end. Now, tell me what you thought of this story and where you're watching from. Do you think Jessica made the right decisions? Share your honest thoughts in the comments. Your feedback means so much to us. Don't forget to like this video and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other heartwarming stories like this one.